Well, folks, I should start humming the song because our computer has frozen and it is not playing our lovely theme song for Ask Your Herb Doctor. So I have the rotating circular thing of death on the Apple. I am going to just think about that lovely song and pass it on over to Andrew and Sarah.
Okay, so welcome. You're listening to Ask Your Herb Doctor on KMUD Garberville 91.1 FM and on the web at www.kmud.org. We're also live streaming this program to our Western Botanical Medicine YouTube channel. So you can listen live right now on our channel by searching Western Botanical Medicine in the search bar on YouTube, and then go ahead and click on the live stream. So tonight's show is a discussion of aromatase blocking and hormone regulating herbs that modulate the system, the hormone system, as well as adjunctive and potentiating effects of both piperine and capsaicin from black pepper and chili pepper. So we'll get into those two in a little bit. But my name's Andrew Murray.
My name's Sarah Johannesson Murray. Welcome to tonight's show.
Okay, so you can visit our site to see a list of organic medicinal herb extracts we produce, and our contact details are there. Alternatively, we can be reached on our toll-free number 1-888-WBM-HERB, and our Western Botanical Medicine Twitter account's handle is @WBM-HERB. And links to both our Twitter and YouTube channel are also on our website at westernbotanicalmedicine.com. Okay, so last month, I opened up with the potential hope of and change in the direction that America is going to go from where it's been for quite some decades now, and the foods that most people are, I would say, forced to eat, but most people are exposed to and that are abundantly available and not very good for you. So that's part of an industry, obviously, that is producing a product for profit, and unfortunately there's definitely things that are done that are certainly not in our best interest, which are much more economically viable as inclusive products, whether they're excipients or emulsifiers, thickeners, flavorings, colorings, etc. So without going too much into that, hopefully there's going to be some return to a good, healthy diet for people, but principally based on those foodstuffs that are in our current food supply that get into just about every food you look at. If you're buying it and it's already prepared, chances are it's got one of those things in it, either a coloring agent, a preservative, an emulsifier, a thickener, and then of course there's the high fructose corn syrup and everything else that is in the food that is certainly implicated in this epidemic of obesity, as well as diabetes and all of the other inflammatory diseases that were pretty much unknown 30, 40, 50 years ago, and in children especially, but obviously it affects all age groups, from children, babies, children, through to adults if they're eating the kind of foods that are just freely available and have become so ubiquitous on the shelves in American food stores. And I brought this out in light to the differences, the stark differences between the type of chemicals that are not allowed in British and European food manufacturing, but which are still very much available and used as part of a agri-chemical methodology for producing large volumes of food here in the States. And it's an industry that is, unfortunately, but like I've always said, I'm not into big government, but it's self-regulated, which sometimes takes a long time for the outcry to reach the ears of the companies producing the products that are included in foods or in the treatment of crops and the raising of animals. But hopefully, if enough people are aware and awake to actually hearing, and that's the first thing, that most people don't really get to know about it. I think when you see what's gone on in our health over the last 30, 40 years, it's a very silent but steady progression. And if you don't hear what the cause of it is, most likely you'll just think that's just your lot. But anyway, so hopefully there'll be a better input into foods and promoting healthy foods and promoting organics and hopefully making it, making it more prevalent so the price can come down to a point where most people can afford it. I think that's the other thing, the economics of it all. Unfortunately, as free business, businesses exist to produce a product at a profit, and that's normal, common sense. But hopefully there can be some kind of encouragement for people to increase agricultural production of organically produced crops and animals that will make it much more sustainable. Because I think if you took 100 people and said, would you want to be fed with conventionally raised food, or would you want to be raised with organically produced food? I think most people would say organically produced, I would think, and it's just the price point that stops people from getting that access. So hopefully that will change. So I wanted to start, I think let's start with, we're going to carry on discussing those herbs that have hormone modulating effects and which interact with the endocrine system and elicit the kind of effects that are responsible for the inflammation, are responsible for cancers, are responsible for degeneration. And so we've long talked with Dr. Pete at length, and he's described in detail all of the negative effects of estrogen and how these hormone estrogen is fairly rampant in terms of it not being opposed unless menstruating females are getting adequate 14-day progesterone exposure to offset it. And also in males, males definitely as they age, their fat especially can be a source of estrogen generation. And so I've mentioned in England when during the early 1900s in Kent, in England, the hop fields were very prevalent, and it was a big industry, and females would lose their menstrual cycle during hop picking because of the effects of hops directly acting like an oral contraceptive, raising estrogen and preventing their cycles. And also for males that drank beer, they would get gynecomastia, which is kind of male breasts, and that's another estrogen symptom.
And also the chimney sweeps in England or throughout the world, the young boys that would clean the chimneys out, they were exposed to large levels of soot, large amounts of soot. And soot is very, very estrogenic. And what the drug companies actually use, one of the things that they can use to manufacture estrogens. And so it's been known to cause scrotal cancer in those young men that were cleaning the chimneys. So soot is it's not, we talk about estrogens and, we think of, the oral contraceptive pill and the drinking water supply, and you think of plastics that act as xenoestrogens, and you think of exposure to chemicals that raise your estrogens, and even radiation damage raises estrogen. Inflammation raises estrogen. But there's also natural sources of estrogen, like soot and like hops, and anything in the, and cannabis is also estrogenic in that family. Plant family is very estrogenic. So there are other estrogens that we could be exposed to in excessive amounts that could be dangerous, that are not necessarily because of our modern day toxicity with plastics and oral contraceptive pills.
Okay, so you're listening to Ask Your Herb, Dr. Kami Galville, 91.1 FM from 7:30 until the end of the show at 8 o'clock. You're invited to call in with questions either related or unrelated to the subject of aromatase blocking herbs, estrogen modulation, and also a small subset of the hour will be given over to both capsaicin and piperine as adjunctive compounds that can potentiate the effects of medicinal herbs. Okay, so hopefully people can hear me. The engineer is waving his head like he's
Could you use that blue microphone instead, I think?
Sure.
I've had this problem with another talk show host that microphone
I
number
use
one
microphone
seems
number
to
two. That's
cut
fine.
out.
All right, well, how's that? I'll face that one away. Do you got it? Good.
Much better, thank
All right,
you.
Great. Okay, so getting back to the specific medicinal herbs that we're going to discuss. One of those, saw palmetto, it doesn't need probably too much introduction, as people have probably been, those people who are interested at least in alternative approaches to the treatment of disease may well have heard about saw palmetto, and specifically in its 5-alpha reductase, DHT reducing specifics. So for benign prostatic hypertrophy, it's primarily known for its 5-alpha reductase lowering effects, but it also exhibits mild aromatase inhibiting effects as well. This is potentially reducing estrogen levels in males, and it's commonly used in men for the treatment of benign prostatic hyperplasia or hormonal imbalances in general. So saw palmetto can have an indirect effect on testosterone levels by slowing down the conversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, or DHT as its acronym, which is a more potent androgen hormone, by blocking the activity of 5-alpha reductase, the enzyme responsible for catalyzing the conversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone. It's been used to prevent hair loss by reducing the uptake of DHT into the hair follicles, which decreases DHT's ability to bind to specific hormone receptors. In mice with enlarged prostates, it was observed that saw palmetto extract decreased swelling and several markers of inflammation, including interleukin-6, a pro-inflammatory marker. And according to a 2020 review, saw palmetto has been shown to block the uptake of DHT and decrease its ability to bind to androgen receptors by nearly 50%, so quite a significant study. It may help regulate testosterone levels by that effect. And another PubMed study also noted that taking 1,200 milligrams per day of rosettin, a supplement made with saw palmetto, and astaxanthin, a type of antioxidant found in algae, increased serum testosterone levels by 38% compared with placebo. Now, because dihydrotestosterone, the more potent form, is also involved in the enlargement of the prostate gland, decreasing your levels of DHT by using saw palmetto may also improve prostate health and benign prostatic hypertrophy. Saw palmetto, as a hair health support and as a DHT regulator, regulates hair growth and may contribute to containing hair loss and balding, male pattern balding, in test tube as well as animal studies.
I just want to point out that astaxanthin is also commonly found in shellfish.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
That's a safer source than algae, because algae has compounds that are liver toxic, and I could send listeners any many articles that discuss the toxic effects of whether it's blue-green algae or spirulina. They have compounds in them that the human liver does not like. They're okay for fish to eat, but shrimp and crayfish and salmon, trout, they're also good, adequate sources of
astaxanthin.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think astaxanthin gives those particular fish that kind of pinkish coloration too. I think there's some color associated with it. Anyway,
most antioxidants are effective, and one of the reasons why they are effective is because of the pigment.
All right. So to continue then, it's not just for prostate health, but saw palmetto also, and again, this is a kind of interaction between hormone physiology in males and females, that women with polycystic ovary syndrome otherwise known as PCOS, usually have imbalanced sex hormones, including excess androgens. And the Mayo Clinic study that I wanted to quote here showed that Saul Palmetto was able to balance these levels of estrogen to testosterone by interacting from 5-alpha reductase. Now, so lowering the levels of androgen hormones in the body can certainly help decrease certain symptoms of PCOS, such as female facial hair or excess hair growth in the body, as well as excessive oily skin, which can be one of those determinants of acne. So that's a fairly typical PCOS female presentation. Would be, to the worst degree, would be hirsutism with kind of facial hair, kind of muscular kind of build in many females like that, and then acne, and these are basically hormones that basically shouldn't be there in those amounts, and this is pulled out from the International Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism Research. So saw palmetto extract primarily comprised of fatty acids, phytosterols such as beta-cytosterol, beta-carotene, several vitamin E derivatives, and polysaccharides. It's a competitive, non-selective inhibitor of both 5-alpha reductase isoforms, blocking nuclear uptake of DHT and decreasing DHT binding capacity to androgen receptors by nearly 50%, which is quite impressive. Also, saw palmetto's fatty acid components directly inhibit enzyme activity and aid in the enzyme's selective hormone transformation process and influence access to cofactors by affecting the enzyme's conformational state. Saw palmetto also increases the activity of 3-alpha hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, an enzyme converting DHT to its weaker metabolite androstenediol.
So basically, you can think of saw palmetto as an herb that will help protect men's testosterone by not allowing its conversion into estrogen, and also to limit the amount of DHT, which can get converted into estrogen and can promote prostatic hypertrophy. So it's a really great herb that's very effective at keeping estrogen in check in men and helping to maintain normal, healthy testosterone levels.
And it is the very nature of these sterols that a fairly high ethanol content extract is needed, and obviously those supercritical extracts are very good at removing those fatty sterols from plant materials. So there's some notable supercriticals that are very well suited to that kind of extraction.
Is that going to be better than eating the whole berry?
Well, you know what? When you eat it yourself, your body, your own body will digest the meat of that saw palmetto, that kind of date-like meat that it has, and you will absorb it for sure. But if you wanted to just get an extract of it, the best way would be a supercritical extract or a high ethanol extract. I think we produce ours as a 70% ethanol extract. So that way
it extracts those fat soluble compounds that are being the aromatase inhibitor and acting at decreasing the DHT and increasing the testosterone. And it's a little more concentrated. Otherwise, you're relying on your own body, which is totally adequate if you eat enough of them. But traditionally, making an extract is preferable, a high ethanol extract.
Okay, so that was saw palmetto. I think most people have heard about it. It's been about for a long time. I think it kind of goes in and out of vogue. But most of the papers that I looked at were 2018, 2020, 23, and 24. So, there's still plenty of research that's being done to validate it. It's definitely not going out of vogue. And I would suggest that, especially for males, if they want to treat benign prostatic hypertrophy, saw palmetto definitely has a place. It's not the only herb that I would choose if I was making a formula for somebody with a prostatic inflammation. Obviously, there are some others, and we're going to cover them. So it's not the reason for covering benign prostatic hypertrophy, but there's these enzymes and hormones that they're blocking, and allowing testosterone to rise is definitely preferable for males than rising estrogen. Even for females, rising estrogen is not a good thing. So unfortunately, it's been commonly repeated for many decades now, and Dr. Pete was fairly ardent about it. The estrogen industry was well funded and was a very a very big machine driving the sales of estrogen at the expense of what actually was the best thing for a female, which was progesterone, which is the anti-inflammatory hormone of youth, and the thing that sustains the fetus and grows life and prevents scar formation is anti-inflammatory. But
I mean, you do need both in a pregnancy, obviously.
yeah, you need both, but it was only ever really been mentioned in the context of being the hormone that is suitable for women. That is the thing that drives their premenstrual syndrome or
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's a balance between estrogen and progesterone. Obviously, you need both. And the estrogen is there for a specific time, but it has to be balanced by the progesterone. Otherwise, it can rage out of control and cause all sorts of problems, from fibrocystic breast disease, fibroids in the uterus, cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, and, more common things like premenstrual syndrome and cramps. Yes.
Could I ask you guys about the production of estrogen commercially and where the name Premarin comes from, and issues with that?
Yeah. It's mare's urine, I think, is principally
Pregnant mare urine. Premarin.
Yeah, mare, exactly. Yeah. That I think that is the kind of number one source. Although I'm sure synthetically they are producing it, but that's been traditionally where it was got from pregnant mares.
I have a friend who was a vegan activist, and she would dissolve it in, she would go to places where affluent women would be, and she would dissolve the pills in a little glass of water, and you get something that seems an awful like horse urine.
Okay.
And yes, not good conditions in raising the horses either.
All right, so the second herb that we want to look at is grape seed extract. Well, it's not an herb per se, but is a byproduct of wine manufacture. So grape seed extract from Vitis vinifera. The active compounds of grape seed extract are procyanidins. And these procyanidins from grapeseed extract have been shown to inhibit aromatase activity and reduce estrogen synthesis. It works by decreasing oxidative stress. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of it. And also, it regulates directly an enzyme system called CYP19A1 gene expression, which contributes to decreased aromatase gene expression. So two main activities, but one of the main ones really is its antioxidant activity. So by being an strong antioxidant, antioxidants have this capacity to decrease oxidative stress, and oxidative stress can, in its own right, promote estrogen synthesis. As I said, inflammation in its own right will promote estrogen synthesis. So whenever you cut yourself or you have a constant inflammation going on, whether it's an organ that's constantly inflamed or some part of a wound that's constantly inflamed, estrogen is being manufactured by most cells that are there as a result and parcel of inflammation.
And it's healthy in the healing process that there is a little estrogen there, but then the body's supposed to heal, and the estrogen drops back down to background levels and not continue to be high. But when you're chronically sick and you have chronic inflammation, it carries on. And that's the problem, that it's not checked in sickness and disease. It becomes a continuing vicious cycle of more and more inflammation.
So grapeseed extract then has been used in hormonal health and cancer prevention. Preclinical studies demonstrate the effectiveness in lowering estrogen levels and slowing tumor growth in breast cancer models. The hormone regulation of premenstrual syndrome and menopausal symptoms is by decreasing excessive estrogen. So, stating in the American Association for Cancer Research article from 2006, grapeseed extract is an aromatase inhibitor and a suppressor of aromatase expression. Now, as we've said, aromatase is the enzyme that converts androgen to estrogen, and it's expressed at higher levels in breast cancer tissues than normal breast tissue. And grapeseed extract contains high levels of procyanidin dimers that have been shown in our laboratory to be potent inhibitors of aromatase. So that's a 2006 study. It seems fairly old, but there's plenty of others. You can go check most PubMed or other ResearchGate sites that are putting out very recent current research, and grapeseed extract is still being written on in papers for postdocs. Okay, so the next herb.
So a natural source of grapeseed extract would be to have wine. Small amounts of wine would have grapeseed extract in it, because the seeds are
Red
there
wine,
when they're red wine when they're so same with white wine if the white grapes have the seeds in them. But I guess it is probably doesn't have as much resveratrol because that's a colored compound probably.
Yeah. Okay, so the next herb is maca. Now, I haven't really said too much about maca, and it's almost as if, again, this herb has its in vogue, out of vogue kind of status. 1 minute you look on the shelf and there's maca everywhere. Maca chewies, maca gummies. There's cosmetics with maca and then internal stuff with maca. But I wouldn't underestimate it. It's one of those things that's been used indigenously for a long time, and certainly has plenty of good reason that it's been used for a long time. One of those particular brassicas that are grown at very high altitudes in Peru, and in a lot of ways, there's not too many things that will grow at that kind of altitude. It's an extremely hardy plant, and it's been traded at lower elevations for other, products that can't grow at high elevation, but it was actually studied as a fertility aid. So preclinical investigations highlight the benefits attributed to maca compounds, including neuroprotection, anti-inflammatory properties, immunoregulation, and antioxidant effects. Maca has also shown potential for enhancing fertility, as I've said, and combating fatigue and exhibiting potential anti-tumor properties. The versatility extends to metabolic regulation, including gastrointestinal health, cardioprotection, anti-hypertensive activity, muscle growth, hepatoprotection, pro-angiogenic effects, anti-thrombotic properties, and anti-allergic activity. Now, clinical studies primarily focused on sexual health. It indicated improved sexual desire, erectile function, and subjective well-being in men. Maca also shows promise in alleviating menopausal symptoms in women and enhancing physical performance. Oral administration of maca extracts, maca powder, and some isolated macamides has been shown to decrease levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines, the tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-6, interleukin-1 beta, in the hippocampus, and increase levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Recent 2023 data also suggests that the regulation of the gut-brain axis by maca may be one element of its therapeutic mechanism. Now, glycosinolates abundant in maca possess anti-tumor, antioxidant, and antifungal activity. They're considered the main source of anti-cancer activity of maca because, together with their metabolites, they exhibit chemoprotective characteristics by acting as inducers of phase 2 enzymes with possible antiproliferative, apoptosis-promoting, and redox regulatory activities. This was both from a 2018, 2019, and 2021 paper. So as well as its fertility increasing effect and its hormonal influencing capacity, maca is neuroprotective, immunoregulatory, and anti-tumor. It's also anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. You're listening to Ask Your Herb Doctor, KMUD Garberville, 91.1 FM. It's 7:30, so 7:30 until the top of the hour. You're invited to call in with questions. It's 707-923-3911. We're going to carry on some herbs here that have aromatase blocking or other enzyme blocking activity to reduce estrogen and increase testosterone in males for sure. Some of these others will also be progestogenic in their own right. Okay, let me just go on here. So number 4, I wanted to cover Passiflora. I did actually mention this last month. And Passiflora, I mean, obviously we use Passiflora as a sleep aid, but there's so much more going on that most of our kind of recent papers have come out with. And chrysin, C-H-R-Y, chrysin, this is a flavonoid from passion flower. Like I said last month, it's also chrysin's also found, and probably because those good old bees visit all those different flowers, and lots of flavonoids are present there in pollen, in flowers, and so both propolis and honey contain fairly high amounts of flavonoids. But chrysin is one of those. And it's relatively poorly absorbed in the gut, which is why an adjunct is useful for its absorption. And we're going to get into piperine as an adjunct, as well as I mentioned earlier, capsaicin, to make these substances like chrysin far more bioavailable. So I think we have a caller on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Where are you from and what's your question?
Where am I from? I'm from Ketton Palm. My question is, okay, so recently I was severely injured, and I'm taking this nerve drug called gabapentin, and I read that you could you could use that pepper. What is that pepper? Anyway, you're talking about it, capsaicin.
Capsaicin. Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering if there's any way to avoid the gabapentin.
Gabapentin's main use, I think, is for neurological pain. And so depending on how severe the pain is, certainly there's an indication for things like capsicum plasters that have been used traditionally as pain mitigating plasters that are added to skin over joints or other areas that have been affected by nerve pain. So
sorry, a plaster is a Band-Aid. So you can obtain Band-Aids that have capsaicin in them, and you can get capsaicin creams, rich creams and ointments at the pharmacy.
At what pharmacy? Any pharmacy?
Yeah, most pharmacies. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is that you're dealing with, but if it is something like nerve pain, like from shingles or a joint pain, then the capsaicin Band-Aids might help that.
No, it's from some surgery that I had, and so lots and lots of pain, and I've tried the Tylenol, and I'm trying to avoid the opioids because they bind me up,
Yeah, I understand.
Where's
so you put these plasters on or Band-Aids, and that's how it works.
Well, where's your pain principally?
Well, I have an incision on the front under my right nipple, and then in the back I have another incision because I have a bunch of broken ribs.
Yeah, well, the other thing that can help with broken ribs and broken bones is if you have comfrey ointment. Comfrey ointment, a comfrey ointment with some capsaicin in it would be helpful for helping to heal that up, because the capsaicin, the chili powder, I mean, you can just make it with chili powder. If you can find a comfrey ointment, you can put some chili powder, some cayenne.
If you have broken skin, though, if you have a scar, then you've got it. It's probably not.
It depends how well healed up your scar is.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
I just didn't know how you applied this capsaicin or whatever you're calling it.
Well, once your wound heals up more, in the meantime, you could use ointments like comfrey and calendula because those help the bones heal as well as the wound heal.
yeah.
Topically. And then once it's healed up well enough, if you're still getting pain, then you could put the capsaicin Band-Aids on or add cayenne powder to your comfrey ointment.
Oh.
But not until that skin is more healed up because it will irritate an open wound.
I wanted.
It's been about 6 weeks, so.
I was going to bring out an article actually that's just been released 2024 about acetaminophen or Tylenol, the active compound in Tylenol, and how bad it is. Dr. Pete had always said that aspirin's far safer as an anti-inflammatory. And actually, most people don't get an awful lot of benefit from Tylenol as a painkiller. But that's an aside. I'll probably read that out, between now and 8 o'clock. But I wouldn't use. Yeah, Tylenol's not the best thing in the world to be using.
And
Yeah.
aspirin, if you
Yeah.
can use aspirin, that's a much safer painkiller if you're using adequate amounts of vitamin K2. Perhaps you want to contact us via email, and we can give you some more
Okay.
advice about that.
Yeah, I just wonder what you think about the gabapentin.
Yeah, I find it's Neurontin, right? I find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neurontin.
It's got some fairly big side effects and withdrawal issues, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to sit here and.
And what is it helping?
There's
It's
pain.
supposed to be helping this nerve thing.
Neuropathic pain.
Do you find that it does help? Like when you don't take it, does your nerve pain get worse?
No, I don't find that at all.
Well, then I would wean yourself off of it if you don't find it gives you any benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the side effects of it and the dependency of it, also it's relatively it's relatively dependency forming.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I think we have a few more callers on the line, so let's take this next caller. Caller, you're on the air. Where you from? What's your question?
Hi, I'm from Arcata, and I've been on dutasteride and tamsulosin and saw palmetto for about 24 years at this point. False diagnosis of prostate cancer that proved to not be there.
Right.
Didn't do any radical treatments. Have a huge prostate that I'm thinking of doing. I think it's called Razum procedure that using steam to ablate the interior tissue in the prostate. My question is, what is the actual... So I've been using all of these drugs that inhibit the conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. Yep. What's the purpose of dihydrotestosterone in the body? Positive effects, if any.
It's kind of a side
that have been inhibited.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
It's almost quote unquote a byproduct of dysregulation of the hormone system. If you could have your way and actually not convert it to DHT but maintain high testosterone levels, you'd be much better off.
Right, I have high testosterone levels as it works out.
Do you say you say you have
my testosterone is better than expected. It's at a relatively high level.
Okay,
but I don't have dihydrotestosterone.
Okay,
so
but what
I'm
can
just
also
wondering if part of my muscle loss at the age of 74 and having been put on statins that I did not do okay with,
right.
And lost about half of my musculature. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if not having the dihydrotestosterone is part of why it's so difficult to put mass back on.
Yeah, I mean that is part of DHT is a testosterone that will help build muscle mass. And the other thing about DHT is it will not get converted into estrogen, whereas the testosterone will get converted into estrogen. Mm-hmm. And it's actually the estrogen that is really irritating to the prostate. And so trying to stop that conversion by using saw palmetto and avoiding estrogenic substances is a much better treatment.
I've been on saw palmetto for that same period of time.
Have you used nettle root extract as another aromatase blocker?
I do a nettle root tea.
Okay.
That's part of mixtures of teas that I take.
Yeah, it's relatively, it's water soluble pretty much. And then obviously other things like pumpkin seed extract. You're probably very familiar with most of the generic prostate herbs.
I eat pumpkin seeds, but I haven't done an extract.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not too
sure.
So
I think you've answered my questions, but if you have more advice, I'm all ears.
For sure. Well then again, hormone cycling, in terms of your liver obviously is the number one organ for removing quote unquote metabolites and waste products and or excess hormones, as is your digestive system in your bowel. I know Dr. Pete totally would start talking about, fibers, non-fermentable fibers that we don't digest, fibers that are excreted unchanged that will pull excess estrogen, as Sarah mentioned, out of the bowel. So I know he would totally, his diet would totally be advocating carrot fiber or bamboo shoot fiber added to the diet.
Well, cooked mushrooms are also
anti-estrogen. Last month we mentioned
love mushrooms. Have a lot of fiber in my diet.
Okay. Well, the white button mushroom extract was principally another aromatase blocker.
Okay.
The mushroom acts as not only a fiber, but also it's an aromatase blocker, so it acts as an anti-estrogen.
And shiitakes and reishi and cordyceps, all good?
Cordyceps, but not specifically in the context of prostate health, but more as a kind of immunomodulator.
No negatives.
But the other thing that can happen that people don't really understand when you take a cholesterol-lowering drug is you take away the building blocks for manufacturing your steroidal sex hormones.
Yeah.
And so
my body could not handle the steroids, and a cardiologist forced me onto it, even though I'd had two bad experiences before, and I lost half of my musculature before I managed to
get off of it?
Take myself off, yeah.
And how long were you on that statin?
I was on that statin for 2 or 3 months, and I lost muscle. I mean, I was a professional dancer, and I'm weak.
Wow.
I'm like...
So that was pretty quick, because it was taking away your building block from manufacturing your testosterone and your DHT.
Right.
So how long have you been off of it now?
It's been over 10 years.
Oh, wow. So was that rapid? Within a couple months, you said?
I've been off of it.
No, I mean, it was that rapid with, you only took the statins for 3 months and you noticed your muscle mass deteriorate.
Enormously. Oh.
Yeah, they're a terrible drug.
Yeah, I certainly can't do them. I had tried. I'd been put on them a couple of times, 10 or 15 years before, and just couldn't handle the pain, which was all over.
I'm sorry to hear that. Oat bran is a really good fiber that can help with good oat bran. It's good to help with cholesterol levels and
which you want to be at least 200 milligram percent at your age. I mean, over 50s, the recommendation, I mean, it's not the American Medical Association's recommendation, but Dr. Pete's recommendation, and borne out with plenty of science to show that the conversion of that cholesterol into those neuroprotective steroids and other anti-inflammatory pathway steroids, you get it from cholesterol. So if you artificially drive your cholesterol down to the 150s or 140s or 130s with statins, you're barely going to be repairing cell membranes that are rich in cholesterol, let alone producing any hormones that you would typically need to produce. So you want not quote high, but you want a cholesterol at least 200.
Okay, mine's around 160, 165, but it's mostly, or not mostly, but it's I have a high HDL as opposed to LDL.
Okay, so why would they put you on statins with that kind of a...
Well, then maybe that's what it is now, on a statin.
No, he's not on a statin. He's been off a statin for 10 years.
No, they put me on a statin after they did a procedure that put a stent in my descending aorta.
Okay. Right, okay. So now naturally your total cholesterol is 160?
If I recall, it's 160, 170. It varies.
Yeah, so maybe you don't want to be eating.
I keep the HDL up.
And it's not typically the cholesterol that would give you the atheroma in your descending aorta, that you probably had the stent placed in with the proviso that it was the cholesterol that was driving it and you need to be on a statin. Well, that's been debunked fairly clearly.
That's nice to hear. It's a little too late for me, but I hope the word gets out.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you might have still needed the stent because of the damage, but what studies have shown is that there's damage to the arterial wall, usually from iron, excess iron, and polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-6, and omega-3 fats that oxidize rapidly and cause a free radical storm inside your arteries, combined with iron and other inflammatory compounds that damages the interior lining of your arteries. And then the body says, we have to stop and quelch this free radical reaction, this inflammatory bomb that's going off. We're going to cover it up with a Band-Aid of cholesterol. So when Japanese scientists dissected arteries that were blocked, they found a cholesterol plaque on top of iron and a vegetable seed oil that had oxidized. That is what was causing the blockage in the artery. And the cholesterol plaque was just put on top of it to try to stop it, because cholesterol is like a waxy substance that stops inflammation. It stops the body reacting. Right. And that is why they have proven that it's not actually the cholesterol that's causing the problem. It's the inflammation underneath.
I follow. You mentioned omega-3s. They're an issue?
Yeah, they are very rapidly oxidized in the body because they go rancid, and our bodies are 98 plus degrees and full of oxygen. You put those two combinations together with a unstable oil and it will go rancid. And when it goes rancid in the body, that's not a good thing. That's a free radical reaction. It's rancid. The body tries to detoxify that and has to deal with these rancid byproducts. So that's why eating stable fats is much safer.
Right.
Okay, we have another caller.
I'll let you go then. Yeah, Thank you so much. Great information.
I appreciate your call.
Thank you for your call.
Get a chance to voice a question. Caller, you're on the airway from. What's your question?
I was actually going to ask if eating nettles gives you the same benefit, nettle leaf gives you the same benefit as a tea from the root.
No. Okay, so the leaf is very different in terms of its pharmacology and its action or its indication. So obviously, the root is specifically an aromatase blocker, so it's used for benign prostatic hypertrophy. The leaf obviously contains so many different chemicals. If you look at a nettle, I've got actually an article, a 2022 article. It's one of the next things I was going to read out, funnily enough. I know you didn't know that, but I've got a breakdown of some of the things. I mean, obviously, it's, sex hormone binding globulin blocking activity in the root is the main thing that we were going to discuss for, prostatic hypertrophy. But the leaf, it contains so many different trace elements and nutrients in it that I didn't hardly believe it. I got a huge list here, and I can read this out in a bit, but its main indication was an anti-allergic, but there's so much more on offer with nettle leaf that I never even really I don't think we got taught about it when we were studying nearly 30 years ago. But
so really it's the root, the nettle root, that's the aromatase inhibitor. The estrogen lowering compounds are found in the root. And it can be made as a decoction. I really tend to recommend decoctions for roots because, they're hard fibrous substances and you need to boil them in order to get out the compounds. Or you can make a low alcohol extract of nettle root. But the tea of the leaf can be used just with as an infusion with just boiling water and allowed to soak overnight. So you allow the leaching of the minerals and the compounds from the nettle leaf into the water. That's how I like to drink my nettle tea, is I let it infuse overnight. But the root, you tend to boil most roots for 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so just we'll take this next caller, but then we'll go over nettle. Okay, so next caller, you're on the airway from. What's your question?
That's me. I have a couple of questions. One, what's the difference in between grapefruit seed extract and grape extract seed? And then also, how can we grow sal palmetto? Because in the herb books, you rarely find it. It's not easy to find sal palmetto in the books.
Okay, so grape seed extract and grape extract. So grape seed extract is an extract specifically from the seed of the grape, and then grape extract presumably...
No, grapefruit extract.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that's a citrus seed extract.
Audio is really bad tonight. I can't...
Yeah, so what's the difference? I mean, why do they serve us, grapefruit seed extract and don't serve us grape extract?
Well, I mean, they do. There's... grape seed extract is, has the resveratrol and the other compounds that we were talking about that are in wine, but they're also in dark red berries like, strawberries and purple berries like blueberries and huckleberries and blackberries.
How does that apply to the consumer idea of grapefruit extract?
Okay, so grapefruit seed extract is another source of. Yeah, well, it has been used as a preservative, but it's a citrus seed extract, and it is used also. There's a whole. I could send you some papers about grapefruit seed extract, but basically, grapefruit seed extract or any citrus seed extract is going to have the same kind of compounds that are found in the peel. The peel and the seed have these antioxidant compounds that are very useful for.
I'm aware of it. What is the difference between that and grape seed?
Oh, it's just it's a different compound, has different compounds in it. So grapefruit seed extract, like I was saying, has the bioflavonoids like the peel does of citrus, and those are going to be things that help strengthen membranes. And then the grape seed extract is what Andrew was speaking about earlier, that does have some of those antioxidant compounds, but it also is useful for mitigating the different hormone levels.
Okay, where in the it's so very hard to find saw palmetto in any herb book. It's not very common that you find saw palmetto.
Well, it won't. It doesn't grow very well here because it's a palm and it likes the south, and it's a palm that grows in warmer climates.
Like a palm tree? Is it like a
palm
tree?
Yeah, it looks like a short palm tree.
It's shrubby. It's
a shrubby palm tree.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And
it wants a very warm, humid environment.
So it's a tropical plant.
Yeah, it's tropical.
And then so...
Arizona, you probably grow it in Arizona or really southern California. I'm sure you could grow saw palmetto down there.
Right. Okay. Well, and then on the nettle spectrum, my curiosity, I've studied enough of nettles, the nettles are really supposed to affect the kidneys on a huge spectrum, right? So if your kidneys are weak, is it good or not to use the nettle?
I think nettle leaf is pretty much like eating your green leafy vegetables. It's a great source of all sorts of minerals and anti-inflammatory compounds. Quercetin is very high in quercetin. So I don't think it's going to be hard on your kidneys.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for your call.
Proteins principally are relatively hard on the kidneys. But okay, so getting back to nettle quickly. I don't know if we have time for any more calls because it's 5:02. But hey, I appreciate the callers that have called in tonight. So we're getting back to nettle leaf. Okay, so the roots mainly contain fatty acids and sterols, and these things have that, principal effects on decreasing prostatic hypertrophy by being anti-aromatase and sex hormone binding, globulin blocking. But the leaf contains lignins and flavonoids, phenols, alcohols, alkaloids, benzopyrenoids, and terpenoids, making it a huge phytochemical store. With the roots principal effects, as we've said, decreasing BPH. So if you look at a monograph, or even if you just go to PubMed and type in, or ResearchGate, I saw a very good article actually while I was looking at some information from nettle root to support its current use in this day and age, because it's been used for a long time. The breakdown of nettles was huge. It was like a library of chemicals that I wasn't actually aware that it contained so many things, because we've only ever really think about it as an anti-allergic, for hay fever or asthma or that kind of thing. But a pretty huge plant. So 756. I was going to say, I covered most things, but I was going to get into rosemary. Again, the breakdown for rosemary. Let me quickly just tell you this. So I got a 2020 paper entitled Anti-Cancer Activity of Rosmarinus officinalis, Mechanisms of Action and Therapeutic Potentials. It highlights some excellent anti-neoplastic effects of rosemary from colon cancer, gastric cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, lung cancer, ovarian, cervical and skin cancer, urinary tract cancer, prostate and breast cancers. And this is attributed mainly to the diterpene fractions isolated from an ethanolic or supercritical extract I mentioned earlier. Sol palmetto is a supercritical. Rosemary, again, is another one of those well suited to supercritical extract. But this just shows you the diterpenes, an amazing family of phytochemicals that are very prevalent in the Lamiaceae, the mint family, amongst others. Okay, so it's 3 minutes to the top of the hour. Don't want to get stepping on anyone incoming toes. My name's Andrew Murray.
My name's Sarah Johannesson Murray. Thank you for joining us tonight.
We'll be back on the air January the 3rd, Friday of January. We can be reached at westernbotanicalmedicine.com. Our Twitter handle is @WBMHerb. Our YouTube channel is Western Botanical Medicine. We're licensed medical herbalists, and we've been practicing herbal medicine here for nearly 30 years. And I've been in the Whitethorn area here for the last 24 years and doing this radio show for at least 22 years now. So we see a wide range of people with a wide range of conditions. And I hope you find the information that we brought out interesting, stimulating your interests in herbs if you're not already, and supporting what is nature's pharmacy. And it's where most of the drugs, well, a lot of the drugs that we have come from naturally occurring plants. So don't forget your foliage out there, and appreciate all that creation around you. Have a great night, have a great Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2025.
We look forward to joining you again for another Ask Your Herb Doctor on January 17th of next year, 2025. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
I'll let it play another 20 seconds to get us closer to the top of the hour. I'm going to start doing the top of the hour over, so you might want to stop.